just talk just so you know that what I'm doing, it's feeding me into the page. And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Dean DeTonencourt, President and CEO of HomeSmart Professionals Real Estate and Real Estate Network. And I am joined here today with someone who needs no introduction whatsoever, and that is Madam President Shannon Buss, President of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, as well as Broker Associate of the Randall Family of Realtors. So Shannon, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you making the time. And I'm excited to be able to talk about everything that's going on in the market, of course. When we look at the market climate, the industry overall, as we continue to transcend beyond world events in many different aspects as it affects the real estate industry. I want to allow the opportunity for us to talk about, what's going on year to date. Here we are, you're in the middle of your presidency, and we appreciate all of your service. And I know, and many know, all of the work and effort that goes in, especially with the adversity that happened since the beginning of the year. So thank you for your time and dedication, of course.
My pleasure.
So let's talk about it. And, I think a lot of people want to know what's happening. We've got press releases that we put out from the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, and we're talking about the market. And when we compare this year's market to the same time period last year, month over month comparison, year to date comparison, what are we seeing out there right now, and how do we need to interpret it moving forward?
So we as an association pull our statewide statistics, our numbers, our production every month on the 10th. And the reason we do that is because the majority of closings happen at the end of the month. And so that way we get a true and accurate picture of what that previous 30 days looked like. Our last press release and the last infographics that we put out into the world were for June. So it would, for May.
Right.
And we reported a dip, but we fully expected to be reporting a dip. In fact, we fully expected it would be a larger number. So it wasn't too bad, but what people need to know about that is that, when you initiate a transaction, if I present an offer for a client today, really that transaction won't be recorded for another 30 to 60 days. Sometimes longer, but normally it's 30 to 60. And so all of those numbers that we just reported were really a reflection of what we were working on and looking at in the market 2 months ago, right? And that's when we were all homebound.
Right, because May closings ultimately are a result of March and April activity, isn't it?
That's right.
And what was everyone doing in March
what
and
you work on today, you close on in 30 to 60 days.
Right.
So those numbers are not reflective of what's happening this morning in the market. Certainly we expected them, and we've pounced back so remarkably, and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
But don't look at those numbers and feel like the market is going down. It's not.
Doomed,
It
right.
is.
Right.
It's like on fire.
Well, and to that point, you look at the news, right? And in general, news posts the negativity of things because it's all about the shock value, okay? And that's not all news, but generally speaking, people want to know the bare truth. So when you look at the number of May of 2020 versus May of 2019, the Rhode Island Association is reporting a drop in sales overall of 31%. Now, the reason I say that is not because, I want to say the sky is falling, because I want to show that in comparison, as you and I just discussed in preparing for this call. And the reason this call evolved is year to date overall, the change in the market over last year, same time frame, year to date, we're only at an 8% change in the market. That's far different from the 31% that the association is reporting for May. And that's why, to your point, we need to clarify it, because it just sounds so shocking.
I actually feel very proud about that number.
Yes.
Because when you think about what was going on in the Rhode Island real estate market during that 30-day period, we didn't know if we were going to be able to close deals at that time.
Right.
We were struggling.
We couldn't. Nobody was open.
That's right. Inspectors
couldn't even notarize.
We were trying to figure out how to get appraisals done. We couldn't notarize documents, record documents, and so we were in this flurry, unprecedented. I'm sure everyone loves that word at this point, but it's true. I mean, no one in the history of Rhode Island real estate ever had to consider, what if we can't do these things? We just really took all of these functions for granted. And so we did get it done as a group, and we worked together with a lot of other groups and state officials. And
very much so.
Considering everything that, we had to get through in order to keep these deals together, I think it's a pretty good number.
Well, it is, because there are significant drops elsewhere across the country, and there's also, the theory of relativity, as it relates to other parts of the country. But yes, when you look at that, I mean, ultimately, there's no doubt we were going to hit a dip. But to your point, where you said, bouncing back, you look at the activity in the marketplace, and we don't have June's numbers now to be able to rebuke those numbers in May. But, ultimately, June activity has been incredible. And it may still not be what we're going to see in July and August, because June activity has been incredible. And to our point, 30 to 60 days out is going to show what June looked like.
Yeah, I'm excited to see those numbers.
Yeah. I mean, we can agree that there's a lot happening in the marketplace. However, of course, we have to caution everyone in that there's a lot happening, but there's also now a lot happening with the trending of this pandemic and the numbers and the ways that our membership need to continue to navigate. And people talk a lot about the different restrictions and what needs to be looked at, and but it's not business as usual. So what can our membership expect, and what can the consumer expect as we enter phase 3 of opening in Rhode Island?
Yeah. I'll give you my personal take on it, because, I still sell real estate, and so I have boots on the ground.
You have time to sell real estate, Shannon? Come on.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you what I feel like I'm seeing out there. I feel, we've all been holed up at home for 4 months, right? For the most part. Even if we get out a little bit, we've still been really confined and sheltered, right?
Just a moving bubble.
People are starting to go nuts.
Yeah, starting.
But it's a little taste of freedom, and we as humans are working at full speed, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm out there in the world again. Let's go, 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 go. But the businesses out there are not working at full speed yet. And what I mean by that is, for instance, a real estate attorney who has a closing, a normal, your average closing before may have taken 1 hour. Now they're 3 or 4 hours, because buyers and sellers are meeting separately with the attorney. You know, the conference rooms have to be sanitized every time someone walks into them. You know, there's all kinds of protocols for these establishments and offices that take twice as long. And so we are like, you know, let's get it done, get it done. How much business can we do? And the folks that we partner with are trying to keep up. So I think one of the big things right now is it's hugely important for us to practice patience and remember that we are lucky that we're doing the business that we're doing right now, and that these are the folks that are making that happen for us. And everyone's doing the best they can. I think if you do the best you can, that's all you can ask for. And so we're gonna come across some frustrations because, you know, when we like things done, I think it's the way that realtors are wired. We want it done right now, you know. And
well, and I smiled when you said patience, because you
yeah.
know, patience, what is that? You know,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, I still have many, I see many licensees put together agreements with a 30-day close. You know, it is so much effort to accomplish something in 30 days with the closing because of all of the restrictions. If it's not just availability of everyone involved, it's the ability to choreograph all of those details and to structure it so that everybody can accomplish what they need to accomplish. I know that everyone wants in and they're excited and the rates are good and we want to lock in, but we also need to be realistic. Even if it's 45 days for a closing, you know, 30 days is a really tough time frame. And it's not just about, well, I'm buying it cash, I'm not doing financing, we can do it quickly. Well, if that home is occupied, we have to think about what sellers are going through. Movers are moving less in less capacity because of the restrictions. You know, I mean, a seller needs time to pack, they need time to move, they need time to navigate this pandemic with all of the restrictions that all of their influences are experiencing.
Agreed. And, you know, I mean, our clients are home, school's out now, but people have been homeschooling for months. You know, it's harder to show a property when you're at home trying to run a business and you've got kids at home. And, you know, the lenders are half staffed. Everyone's still working. A lot of people are still working remotely.
Yes.
So offices really opened for the first time yesterday, but people are still, you know, it's a matter of comfort. Not everyone's comfortable. And if you're in a high risk category, you're not ready to go out into the world yet necessarily. So there's a lot of considerations. And I keep saying every household is different. Every office is different. You know, every state is different. And there's so many moving parts here that we just have to, patience is key because every transaction is going to be different. And we just have to kind of roll with it, you know, and so consumers have to be comfortable. You know, we have to make sure we're not skipping steps with them, you know, because we do have a lot of conveniences now, like electronic signatures, for instance, right? So this tool that we're on right now, Zoom, using Zoom to really go through that language in the contract before they sign it. You know, we're trying very hard not to skip any steps in the transaction. But yeah, I mean, it's
a whole new way
not
of doing
black
it.
And white.
That's exactly right. So, you know, and we have to just continue to navigate it as it unfolds, of course, you know, but overall, the optimism out there, you know, is at an all-time high. And there's folks that are very, very busy, busier than they've ever been. And there are some folks that are just trying to, you know, recover, you know, and get back into business. And, you know, and regardless of whatever level of activity any of our members are in, they need to have the optimism in knowing that, you know, this market, you know, there is activity out there. The consumers need to know there's activity. Let's talk about inventory. Inventory is...
What inventory?
Right. What is inventory? That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you know, it's, when you look at it, I believe they're still in the range of about 1,500 single family homes that are in true active status in the MLS system. You know, that's statewide. That's not a lot. And people say, oh, nothing's selling, you know, inventory's down. No, No, inventory is down because everything's selling. And that's the thing, everything is turning over. So, there is activity for the consumers tuning in today. And I'm watching, by the way, I always say, if there are any comments, any questions, please post them and we will get to them as soon as we can. But for the consumers that are tuning in, I mean, it's grueling, right? Let's talk about the emotions in the market, Shannon. Inventory is low. That means that there's, because there's so much activity, that means that there are emotions out there. What are the emotions you're seeing out there when it comes to showing properties?
Well, I mean, I have like 1 or 2 extra gray hairs now, but no, I mean, communication is key, right? So I'm huge. If I'm working with a home buyer, we're going to have a consultation before we go out and start walking into people's homes, right? Because that's my opportunity and your opportunity to sit down and really understand what is going on and manage the expectations, right?
Right.
My worst fear as a buyer's agent is, if I don't go through the proper steps, like get my client pre-approved before I'm showing them homes, in this market, everything's, it's selling multiple offers, over asking, it's, giving away your firstborn child. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's very competitive. So my biggest fear as a buyer's agent is showing a buyer a property and they fall in love with it, but they don't get a chance because I didn't go through the proper channels with them to make sure that they were positioned correctly to be going out and looking at homes. Does that make sense?
Right. And to be able to emotionally pick themselves up and say, well, okay, that didn't work out, we'll find another one. How do you half-heartedly fall in love with a house, And there are some folks that have lost out on multiple homes because of multiple bid situations. And we had a conversation, here at HomeSmart with some of our associates, somebody of 9 or 10 properties that a buyer has lost out on, and how do you pick yourself up emotionally as a buyer and keep trying for the next one? At some point you give up, but our job is motivational coach. There's a reason, there's a reason. At some point we can't figure out the reason, but we have to believe that there is a reason, and how do we keep them motivated?
Well, it's true, but we also want to keep them making good decisions for themselves.
Yes.
So we don't want them losing out on 1, 2, 3, however many properties, and then they just settle for something because they feel like they can't get into something else.
Or pay too much because
they
have to overbid in order to succeed.
That's right. So I think, I've been preaching it for a decade. One of these days, people will listen to me.
Here's your chance.
The consultation, I think, is so key, especially right now, because you really have to have your ducks in a row if you want to be out there looking at property. I was looking on MLS for a buyer Friday. They sent me 6 properties, day 1 on the market.
Yes.
6 properties, 5 were pending already.
Wow.
And so that's a quick snapshot of one client's home search. And it's very indicative of this market.
And the hard part is those that have a home to sell, they're not putting that on the market because they don't know where they're going. And then when the home comes on the market that really meets their needs, their home isn't even on the market, so they're not even prepared. And I say it often as well, it's better to have your home on the market with a buyer who's willing to give you time to find something contingent upon finding something than to not have your home on the market at all. It doesn't line you up in place to be competitive, and sellers don't look at you as a viable buyer because your home isn't even on the market, and
Agreed.
I know sellers say, well, if I don't find a house, I'm not moving, so why would I set someone up for that failure? I think many buyers would rather be in deposit with a seller who needs time than to not be able to find a house for themselves. So, at some point we've got to nudge the bottleneck.
Yeah.
That or build more houses.
I just put one of those together myself for someone, and the reason why you have to tell your story, right? It has to be compelling of why should this seller accept your offer. Right. And with the contingency of selling your house, then you add the other contingencies of home inspection, mortgage, commitment, all these other things. That's a pretty big, that's a big risk for the seller to take in this market. So I agree with you 100%. You know, in that scenario, it would have been a no if the house wasn't already active. I mean, the sellers want to see what the listing looks like on MLS. Are you making a real effort to sell it, or did you just kind of, you know, throw around the idea?
Right, that's right. And you know, the sellers have so many choices now, but the sellers are also trying to be smart. I find that many sellers are trying to be empathetic to the situation.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the highest offer, you know, and I think that's a big thing that people really need to take away from this. You know, there are many folks using the strategy of escalator clauses where a buyer will offer X amount of dollars over the highest bid up to a maximum set sales price just to be competitive. But it's not just about price. You know, the seller does not have to accept a bid just because it's the highest offer. So, you know, there was an expression, highest and best. You know, now we've changed to the language of multiple offer situations, because it's not about highest anymore. It's about best.
Mm-hmm.
What are the best terms? You know,
I always try to have a conversation with that listing agent before I submit an offer and say, is there anything that your seller would really prefers? You know, because you might offer, we'll close in 30 days because you think that that's what the seller wants to hear.
Right.
It might really cause them a lot of anxiety,
right.
You know, and maybe 60 days would get you a lot closer to a yes.
Right. You know, that's right. And if you don't ask, you never know. You know, I've seen sellers need 90 days, you know, because they just have a house full of 40 years of collectibles. And, you know, like, you know, to be aggressive at 30 days is really, you know, don't assume that.
Yeah.
You know, we can't make assumptions for our clients, right?
Right.
You know, we try to help them make the best decisions for themselves, but they have to be the ones to make the decisions.
Right.
You know? Is there anything else you're seeing out there with navigating the multiple bid situations?
You know, I know some people are using the escalator addendum. My experience with that, and this is my manager hat, have a conversation with the listing agent in advance, because I find that sometimes you submit them, and if the seller isn't knowledgeable about what it is,
right,
they sometimes get offended,
right,
because they think, well, if they're willing to pay that, why didn't they just offer that to me in the first place?
Right.
I've heard that a lot.
Well, and to clarify with that escalation, it's, you know, it's a set amount over the highest bid up to a max. And well, and to your point, that maximum amount is so appealing to a seller. Why didn't they just offer that? Well, because they don't want to pay any more than they have to,
right?
But they want to be competitive. So, you know, is that fair? Some sellers feel as though it's not fair. You know, it's a very fair and reasonable approach to negotiation. But to your point, sellers may not understand it and may say, I don't know that I like that.
Yeah, I think it's really important as the listing agent that you're presenting, you know, you're even speak about it at your listing appointment before it goes on the market. So, you know, I always like to tell people what is going to happen before it happens.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Because I don't like surprises. So, you know, again, it goes back to communication, but that's one of the things, escalator addendum. I'm not seeing too many people waive inspections, but that's just me personally. I'm not sure what other people are seeing out in the marketplace, but lots and lots of multiple offers. Most of them are highest and best, as you say.
Yep.
But some of them, it comes down to terms. You know, we're in summer now, and you know, people may want to enjoy their home for a little bit this summer, and that could be a deciding factor. So I think it's important to find out what would be most attractive to that owner before I put it in writing.
Right.
I think that's one of the keys.
Yeah, and there are a lot of contingencies that come into play, and you know, we've got a few comments here. You know, Deb mentioned she advises sellers that it should be best and final because of contingencies. So So ultimately, the best and final rather than highest and best, what is the best offer for that? And that's a valid point. What's the best offer for that seller? So, I don't recommend waiving inspections. I know you don't either, but that is one method. Some folks are waiving appraisal clauses, whereas in many cases that you make it subject to the property appraising at or above selling price. Some are waiving that. There are many different ways. The cleaner an offer is, the more appealing it is to a seller, but the buyer cannot expose themselves to liability just in order to compete.
That's right.
So
On
there's
that
a
note,
balance.
I am hearing of some appraisal issues starting to pop up where
Yes.
the property does not appraise for the offer price. And so for the benefit of the viewers,
Yes.
what you just mentioned is, many of us will put in our offers when we represent a buyer that the property must appraise at full offer price, right? Because if it doesn't, in essence, it means your buyer's overpaying for that property.
Right.
And people are starting to take that out of the contract because they feel it might give them a leg up. So,
Right, because it's one less restriction on that. And ironically, our guest last week was Jamie Moore. And
oh,
he talked a lot about that. And, she knows her stuff.
yeah.
And that's the thing. It's, appraisers are working really hard to try and justify values because people are overbidding on properties if they're priced right to begin with, of course. But we as real estate professionals, we price based on emotion. Sellers price based on emotion. So do buyers. Appraisers based on numbers, so they're not out to kill the deals. We put her in the hot seat and asked her some direct questions of how do we handle it when appraisers can't meet the value that is on there. And she said they try the best they can, but there are emotional values that are just not substantiated by facts and figures.
And I think it's a very good practice because those appraisals are starting to get tighter. And the values are going up, right? This past month in Rhode Island, we broke all-time record numbers for average sales price in Rhode Island. So isn't that interesting? Because we have the lowest inventory, of all time and the highest sales prices. So what does that tell you, right? So I think with appraisals, if you're the listing agent, it's very important that you're providing that appraiser with a package on that property with a list of, features, improvements, anything that will help you to substantiate that value. But also look at your best comps, maybe 3 or 4 of what are the best comps in that area, and call those other agents, because it matters if, that comp 1 had multiple offers. You need to know that because that changes things, or you need to make notes on the condition and how it compares to your house, because the appraiser may or may not have access to that same information. Right. So I'm trying to provide them with as much information outside of the data in MLS as I can.
Yes, because it's all just on paper. They don't go into each of the comparable properties. They're basing what's written. And many homes are sold very quickly where listing agents don't even have time to write in remarks. So everything's sold before print for informational purposes only. And there's no information there to have for informational purposes only. So, so be descriptive and seek those details, I think is a big deal. And ultimately, when the appraisals do come in low, the parties have to find a way to bridge that gap. Chris is mentioning, how do you make up the difference, when an appraisal comes in low? And the financing is going to determine, how we can bridge that gap, if at all, because the financing has regulations. You can't just pay the difference in most cases, depending on the buyer's financing program.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of things to navigate with that.
I think that's one of the more important things to pay attention to right now as an agent.
Mm-hmm. The appraisal value.
And as prices continue to go up, I think we'll be dealing with that more.
Yeah. Well, and let's be honest, it's consumer emotion that is driving the values up. but you can't just drive a value up and leapfrog to a new price bracket because it needs to be substantiated. So as appraisals continue to get substantiated because of emotional value of the buyers that are spending the money on them, then ultimately that creates the new comparables that are then used for the next level of the pricing. So, you know, it's the emotion that drives that value. It just needs to be able to be documented.
Yeah.
Yep. So, that's an interesting part of this whole market. That the low activity, the sellers have the upper hand right now, but that doesn't mean the buyers are too much so out of luck. I mean, interest rates are incredible. While there's a lot of folks
for
that
everybody right now.
Yes.
There's
right.
incentive for everybody right now. There's incentive for sellers because of the sales prices. There's incentive for buyers because the rates are so low. I mean, they've never been this low. Someone in my family just refinanced their house for 2.7%.
Wow.
And we were laughing because my parents were talking about when they bought our house in 1986 and their interest rate was like 18% or something. And at that time, no one thought anything of it because that's what it was.
That's right.
So
And
there's really
everything's relative, of course, but to an extent, with price brackets were lower and what have you. And when I got in real estate in 89, I saw interest rates of 12%, things fluctuated from there, and it just kept changing, as the market evolved. But yes, when you look at it, rates under 3%, at 3%, whether, purchase products are in the threes anyway, buyers have a great opportunity right now, and there are many that are gainfully employed, that are able to take advantage of the market. The hard part, of course, is those that aren't, that are in a position where, they either can't go back to work or they don't have a job to go back to right now. When we look at this and we look at as we transition into phase 3 of the, opening of the state, do you feel as though we should be looking at business as usual as we enter into phase 3?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. I had a feeling that you were going to ask me that. And so I did a little research for you today.
Awesome.
Just
I'm
before
so predictable.
fall. In fact, the Newport County Board of Realtors is doing a make your own pizza night tonight. And so I had to drive down to a restaurant in Newport to pick up my little kit.
I was saving that question because our dear friend, Mr. Chris Whitten, mentioned something about a Zoom pizza story. Yeah. And I was saving that for the end. So share that because I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, for $20, you order the ingredients for your pizza. You pick all your own things, your toppings and everything. And you order it online and you pick it up in a little baggie and it's got everything in there. And then at 6:00, we're doing a Zoom with the chef of the Surf Club in downtown Newport. And he is going to show us all how to make our own personal pizzas.
Wow.
Fresh dough, everything. It's really cool.
Very cool.
So anyways, my daughter and I took a drive to go pick up our pizza. And, it is Wednesday before the 4th of July. So Newport is getting busy. Mm-hmm. Probably 75% of the people walking around Newport do not even have a mask in their hand, never mind their face. Wow. It was pretty appalling. So I'm a little concerned because I don't want to go backwards. I think as a state, we've done a tremendous job.
Better than many states, for sure.
Absolutely. In fact, I posted an article a couple days ago that Connecticut and Rhode Island had the lowest numbers in the nation. Yeah. Right? And so, is it business as usual? No, it shouldn't be. And, for a real estate transaction, I don't think it can be, because at the beginning of this talk, we were speaking about people are still not at full staff. Some people are still working remotely. So a lot of times we're dealing with title companies and lenders, and they're not up the street, right? So we have to connect with these guys over the phone, and they're not always sitting behind a desk. So I think we're doing very well. I think we are able to conduct business, and complete everything that we need to complete for a transaction. But I think we're going to have some bumps, and we just need to be patient as people are ironing things out, right? Because like I said, the attorneys, the appraisers, the title examiners, all of these folks, it's just starting to sort of unfold for some of them, right? Like we've been able to practice this whole time. If I wanted to show a house, I could go out and show a house anytime I wanted. Some of these folks weren't even able to go into their office. Right? Title examiners, the town halls were closed. And so there's a lot of backup work, right? We've been closing transactions, but the only reason why we've been doing that is because we had gap insurance through the title companies.
Right.
The town halls are backlogged, and let's not forget,
the gap insurance at least covered the time period from between the time you close and the time you actually got it recorded. Yeah, I mean,
that's the only reason why we've been able to close deals this whole time.
Yeah.
So thank God for the title companies.
That's right.
But, and let's not forget, when this all happened, the lenders were underwater with refinances, because when the interest rates when they got reduced, everybody started refinancing their loans. Folks that I sold a house to just a year ago, and they're saving $500 a month.
Yes.
It's great. But there's a lot of work. These lenders have a lot on their plate. So there's a lot of positives, and we need to have a little more patience.
Very much so.
Right?
And I also tell everyone, for the practitioners out there, the consumers are expecting us to keep them safe, aren't they? So if you are in a situation where you are showing a property and somebody walks in randomly without a pre-scheduled appointment, you have the permission to ask them to leave. If they don't come in with a mask, you have the permission to ask them to leave. The party you're with at that moment expects you to keep them safe. You need to keep yourself safe. You need to keep the other folks safe. They're expecting that. Some people say, I don't know what to say. I don't want to be rude. Well, what's rude is somebody walking in without a mask, or somebody not following the instructions you gave them in the details on the terms upon which you're willing to show that property. So we as the professionals need to be professional about it, but we need to be stern.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, I do need to ask, because Chris is having some really, really fun times. There are some great comments, and
I can't see the chat.
We're in Zoom. You can't see the Facebook comments, but there is. Chris mentions that there's still some other funny story out there about a pizza and a Zoom. And is there anything? is there anything that you didn't share with us that you were avoiding?
Oh, Witten. So at the very beginning of COVID, I will share with you, like, we all have things that we can be working on, right? Yes. So admittedly, and everyone that's ever spent 30 seconds with me knows this about me, I don't love technology. Mm-hmm. It's not my go-to. Like, I am a face-to-face, that's how I prefer things. And so when COVID first happened, I was thrown out of my comfort zone, right? And I was having to do live video and all these things that are completely uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
Zoom being one of them. So on a Sunday, I see on Facebook that Brian Copeland from Nashville is hosting this webinar on how to use Zoom. So I thought, great, I'm in. I need to. So I thought that I had turned off my camera, and apparently I had. Now this is at this time, remember, I was working 16-hour days. Like, we were really going nonstop trying to figure everything out. And there was, a cool 350 people on the Zoom. And of course I didn't know that, because I didn't know how to maneuver the screens. Anyways, I housed an entire pizza on screen in front of 350 realtors. And someone in the chat box wrote, "Gee, Shannon, you're really going for it, aren't you?"
That's
And I
awesome.
quickly learned how to use Zoom. So we all have
That
things,
is,
right?
that is
You're
great.
good at everything.
Yes, well, at least it's not as bad as some other stories where people aren't wearing pants and they get up without, forgetting about it. So, finishing off a whole pizza,
I only ate a pizza.
yeah, you can live up to that.
And I was hungry, so.
And that's okay. You're entitled to that.
Um,
So what should we expect moving forward? What's happening on the RIAR front? Anything our membership need to know about in any capacity as we continue to navigate?
Well, first I want to say kudos to our entire membership, because during June, which was home ownership month, we had, well, part of May and June, we had a 30-day challenge where our members made donations to two Rhode Island charities, and our state association matched those funds.
Yeah.
So we in total donated somewhere around $16,000, I think.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
To some children's organization. Just really heartwarming stuff. We have been involved in beach cleanups. We have done, we are involved right now in talks about rent relief for folks that are not back to work yet, or, and landlords too. I mean, it's a hardship on both sides, right? It's very stressful. Landlords are not receiving rent, and the tenants are afraid of eviction because the courts are back open now. So we have a voice in that conversation as well, which I think is great, because we're not just about selling houses. We champion home ownership at large, right?
Yes.
So.
Yep, very true. And you're right, hats off. And hats off to everyone who dug in and doubled down with everything that needed to happen. Also hats off to the association, to the leadership. It's no easy task to be president of the association, especially this year, and I remember a number of weeks ago, you and I spoke and had Rob Scaraglia speak with us, who was the president in 2008, experienced, very similar, adversity, if you will. And it's not easy, but you have an incredible team with your leadership team, the board of directors, and all of RIAR. When you look at the staff at RIAR who really,
That's why I'm still
really
smiling.
put the work in. Yeah, and I have to say, Samantha Duran said she just tuned in to hear your contagious laugh, which, it's great. Some folks are making some great comments for you. So see, and that's that laugh again, Samantha.
I mean, I think what you need to know, right now, and the message that we need to be putting out there, is the numbers that just came out. We saw a small pause, which everybody expected, and we have completely pounced back into this market. And put on your seatbelt, guys, because it's real busy.
Yes.
It's real busy.
But we need to be smart about it, because we're going to hurt ourselves if we're not smart about it.
Yes.
We need to be mindful of everything we're doing. You look at the states that are struggling, and in some part because they pounced back too quickly as a state, and people went back to business as usual. And I know there'll be controversy just because I said that. And that's why I say in some part because of that, because, the economy needs to continue, but we all need to be safe. So
we have got to follow the rules.
Right.
And we've got to be the example, because, housing is an essential for us, not an essential like an essential business, but, it's the transaction that's essential.
Yes.
Not us. You've got people relocating. There are all kinds of situations, folks that need to go into assisted livings and, have medical needs. And there are reasons why these transactions have to continue to happen. And if we go backwards and we don't follow the rules, everyone's in a hardship.
Right. And we've been fortunate.
Take advantage. Don't push the limits. Don't, if you have to ask yourself, should I? Then the answer is no.
That's right. That's right. You
Yeah.
know, don't go seeking the alternative answer just because you want someone to agree with
Right.
you. And to that point, real estate has remained an essential business, you know, and you know, an activity, and we've been fortunate in that regard. But I will say, up in our main market, you know, I mean, Portland was not an essential business. You know, it was the city that went against what the state's orders were, you know, and said no, it's not essential, you know, and that is a reality out there that could hit us
Vermont
if
was
it goes too
closed.
far.
Vermont was closed, no showings, no photography,
Wow.
nothing for 6 weeks. And I can tell you, because I had someone that had to sell in Vermont in order to move to Rhode Island, it was very stressful for them, you know?
Yes.
So we don't want to end up in that
Well,
place.
and that's the thing. So I think if we continue to be smart about it, I think, you know, everything's looking very positive. Every trajectory.
Absolutely.
We just need to be smart
We're in
about
a
it and
hot
work together.
market, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think I need to say, we also need to be kind to each other. You know, we've got a
Yes.
number of consumers that tune in weekly, but we also have a lot of practitioners. And if I can go on a soapbox, and maybe you can help by backing me up on this, we need to be kind to each other in the field. You know, navigating this market is not easy. Managing the expectations of the consumer is not easy. But managing the expectation of each other should be unnecessary. And I say that because there are practitioners that are getting irate, you know, if their offer isn't accepted, you know, or they're just you know, I can't get a showing, you know. I mean, if you have a house on the market, you need to show it. You know, it's hard because these houses, you know, the next day they're trying to call for a showing. No, you know, we're at a highest and best. We're no longer showing the property. I get that. I'm not saying that, you know, you can't shut down showing activity, but be kind to each other, because all we're trying to do is our job. If you're working with a buyer, you're just trying to get them into the house. If you're working with multiple offers, you're just trying to get them the house. But don't be upset with each other when it doesn't come together, because we can't control the outcome. The consumers support the outcome. And that's the difference. That's what people need to realize, is that it's the
And don't
consumer's
forget,
decision.
these situations that come up, eventually it's going to be you in that position.
Right, right.
And so we all have a job to do. We're all doing our best. I support you 100%. I mean, for the most part, I think, you know, I haven't heard a lot of terrible stories about agent to agent.
I've heard some, unfortunately, and that's
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to take the opportunity while we're talking about it. You know, we're all disappointed when the sale doesn't come together. Think of the realtor who's working with a buyer. You have to pick them up after 9 losses of offers, you know, and you have to get them to be, you know, emotionally ready to keep going. We're already beaten up. You know what I mean? Like, you know, let's not beat each other up too. We're
But
all
at
just
some
trying to
point,
do our job.
I mean, right, we're the smallest state. We work in a small sandbox.
Yeah.
The chances are you're going to come across that agent again.
Yeah.
And it's critical to your business.
Someone just snuck out of your basement.
It's my teenager. She's laughing. She told me today, Mom, everybody better start wearing their masks because you're not cut out for homeschooling. So
That's a valid
that's
point.
where we're at the Buss household.
But yes, that's right. But
you know,
we've got it.
It's critical to your business. I mean, you have to be professional. Relationships are everything, even peer to peer.
That's right. That's
and
right.
you can go much further in your business if you have, you know, if you have good relationships in the realtor community. You just will. When people trust you, they want to do business with you.
And it's not a good old boys attitude that we're trying to profess here, you know, and promote. It's just realize that we're all just trying to do our job. You know, if your offer isn't accepted, don't be irate about it. It's disappointing, I know, but there is a reason for that, you know, and you know, vice versa. You know, if you have multiple
offers, backup offer.
Yes, be empathetic. You know, it's so hard already just trying to let somebody know you can't see the house. They stopped showing it. I know they just listed it last night, but they stopped showing it today. You know, and you know, it's hard enough. you know, so, you know, it's managing it. I've seen as high as 20 something offers on homes. And I remember in 2008, you know, I had almost, I believe it was 40 something on one home at one time. Now that I think of it, there was one that I had 72 offers on a property in 2008. And how do you manage that? 72
Right.
offers. How do you tell
Didn't do
everybody
anything
that
else.
you gave them their best, you know, the best uh, pitch? And, you know, you have to let people know, you know, and just be honest with them. But just don't be upset in return. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's the hard part. We're all in it
Of course,
together in many
of
respects.
course, you always have the option of presenting in person if the seller will agree to it. You know,
Yes,
if you
absolutely. I
want
mean,
the
that is always an
opportunity
option.
to
You
sell
can't,
your offer,
yeah,
then ask for it.
yep. Our code of
I've
ethics
never denied
allows for that.
someone. Well, it's not up to me, but you know, I don't have a problem with a buyer's agent, you know, coming to explain their offer ever. I've done probably 10 of them.
And you know what?
Because
I think I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a big deal. A lot of people don't know that, you know, a buyer can ask their agent to present the offer and you know, just make sure that it gets its true merits, you know, but not to negotiate. You present the offer, you present the terms, and you excuse yourself. You're not there to negotiate with another party's seller. You're only there to present the best aspect for your client. And by the way, with Zoom now, there's no need to interfere with an appointment that somebody has. You can schedule a Zoom meeting, present your buyer's, you know, best foot forward, and then excuse yourself and wish the seller well in their decision. But it's a really great approach.
yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, good stuff.
Just
I'm
keep
checking to
doing the
see if we
next,
have any questions.
just
Um,
keep doing the next right thing, right? Just
yes,
do
that,
the next right thing.
yep, that's exactly right. Yep. You know, it's the commitment to excellence. Yeah.
Yes, thank
Hey,
you.
what's the summer challenge with
Oh,
commitment to
well,
excellence?
the
We'll
summer
end on
challenge.
this because everybody knows how I am with code of ethics and commitment to excellence with NAR. So what's going on? There's some sort of summer challenge.
So NAR has a endorsement, which is a free, you know, I don't even know what you would call it. It's almost like a designation, you know, it's set up that way. There are activities involved. And it's free for realtors to complete. Everyone in Rhode Island who completes it, their name will go into a bucket, and the winner will receive $1,000 cash.
$1,000. $1,000 just for being ethical and
For
being
doing what you
committed
need to do
to
anyway.
get the endorsement to be so. That's awesome.
You know, this was not my contest because I would just say that you should be doing this anyway. But
Yes, yeah. We're not going to pay you to be professional. Right, right. But you know what?
but it's
Sometimes
a
we have
nice
to use
incentive.
whatever we can.
It's a nice incentive. And you can do it right from your phone or your laptop, you know, so if you've got 30 minutes waiting for an oil change or something, get 30 minutes of it done.
Well,
It's
and
really
that's the thing. And, you know, and having been in the program as well, you know, literally it's just logging in c2ex.realtor and, you know, just doing it, you know, in between whatever you're doing. And it's just a series of questions to see, are you truly proficient in different aspects of the profession? And, you know, to receive that endorsement, it's something that you can promote to the consumers, put on your email signature, whatever that looks like. Consumers want to hire the most professional people out there, the most educated, the most informed, the most professional. And that's just one way to show how dedicated you are to that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, there's a referral group out there nationally. So when you get your endorsement, they add you. And there are folks out there that feel so passionate about it that if they're referring business, you will only get the referral if you are endorsed.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's a lot of incentives to doing these things.
Yep. I agree. No, I think that's awesome. So
Yeah.
good stuff. We're always mindful of everyone's time. We try to keep to about an hour. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you were hoping to get across to our membership or to the consumers? Anything at all?
So
No? Good. I think we covered a lot and I appreciate that.
we do know that November's NAR conference is virtual now.
Oh, yes. Thank you. That's important to mention. Yep. NAR, you know, in November is virtual, which
Saves you a lot of money. It makes it easier and more affordable for people to attend. So I'd love everybody on this to consider registering because that's the annual conference. So that's where all the educational content is.
Yes.
It will blow your mind.
Yes, because we did the mid-year virtually as well, and it was really well done. To talk about being thrown into the fire, you know, it was really well done. So now having a little bit of that experience to put in that educational content. There's so many folks that just can't travel and be away from their families for that week worth of time. You know, I mean, take advantage of this. You know, I mean, it's amazing. So, and that's all available online as well, right? nar.realtor.
Yes.
Good stuff. Well, listen, again, we appreciate you. You're doing so much, and we appreciate your leadership and all that RIAR is doing, and appreciate you making time for us and, you know, just sharing some insights. So thank you so much.
Stay safe, everybody.
And thanks to everyone who has posted some questions, and thanks to Chris for heckling our president with pizza stories. So we appreciate that as well.
So my friends at NAR call me pie face now.
That's awesome. We're going to remember that.
That's exactly the word I had for it. Awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome.
So,
all right.
Anyways, everyone has my cell phone. It's on the RIAR website. At any time, please never hesitate to pick up the phone. You can talk to me about anything.
Yep.
Almost.
And I can attest to that. You're always available. So we appreciate that. Yes. Awesome. Thanks for being our champion.
Of course, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.